There's a man in your life. Maybe you've watched him from a distance for years. Maybe you've tried to read him and couldn't figure him out no matter how hard you looked. People throw everything they have at him: guilt trips, emotional pressure, long stretches of icy silence, sudden tears, unsolicited favors, cold shoulders that are supposed to make him chase. Nothing lands. He doesn't get defensive. He doesn't start chasing validation. He doesn't collapse under the weight. He just watches with that calm, unflinching presence. And the person trying to control him ends up feeling completely naked, like they flipped every light on in the room and suddenly realized they were the only one standing there exposed. You've seen this man. What makes him different isn't louder confidence or fake toughness. It isn't aggression. And it definitely isn't that he feels less than other men. It's something deeper, a hidden structure, an entire architecture of the mind that most men are never taught to build, or even told exists. This video is about that exact architecture. By the end, you're going to look at every single relationship in your life, the past ones that broke you, the present ones that still drain you, and you'll finally see the hidden levers that used to move you, and exactly how to remove them forever. Here's the first truth most men never learn. Manipulation doesn't attack your strength. It attacks the gap between what you feel and what you're willing to admit you feel. That gap is the real entry point. If you feel insecure but you pretend you don't, a skilled manipulator slips right in, pokes that hidden insecurity, and watches you defend something you swore wasn't even there. You end up fighting a battle you don't even want to admit exists. The unbreakable man has closed that gap completely. He practices what psychologists call radical emotional clarity. He names exactly what he's feeling in real time. No flinch, no story, no delay, no shame. Someone tries to make him feel small or worthless. He registers it instantly and says inside himself, "This person is attempting to destabilize me right now." That single act of naming it kills the spell dead. The feeling is seen. The tactic is visible. And once a tactic is fully visible, it loses almost all of its power over you. Most men were taught from childhood to suppress their feelings and push them down. The unbreakable man was taught to observe them, fast, honestly, and without judgment. That's layer one. And it's the foundation everything else is built on. Layer 2 is what I call anchor identity. Most people walk around with a self-image that is half built by everyone else around them. Their sense of who they are shifts depending on who's in the room, how that person reacts, whether they're being praised or quietly criticized. That kind of floating identity is manipulable by design. The manipulator's very first move is almost always an identity attack. Questioning your competence, reframing your entire past, casting sudden doubt on your character. If your identity floats on external validation, that attack works instantly, and you start doubting yourself before you even realize what happened. The unbreakable man has a rock-solid, stable self-concept. His sense of who he is does not require anyone's permission to hold its shape. You can insult him, ignore him, try to rewrite his story in front of him. He remains exactly who he was before the words even left your mouth. Not because he's arrogant or cold, but because his identity was built in private, through deep, unflinching self-knowledge, what he actually values, what he's actually survived, what he actually believes at his core. It cannot be overwritten in real time. I watched a man once in a high-stakes business meeting. His partner tried to gaslight him in front of everyone. "You've always been unreliable, we all know that." The unbreakable man smiled calmly, looked him dead in the eye, and said, "That version of me doesn't exist anymore. Try again." The partner folded in under 30 seconds. The room went silent. That's anchor identity in action. Third layer, he understands the difference between a real debt and a manufactured one. The single most powerful manipulation weapon on earth is reciprocity, the psychological compulsion to return whatever someone gives you. Someone offers you a favor, sudden warmth, unsolicited help, or even emotional support first, then later calls it in like you now owe them your soul and your future decisions. Most men feel the invisible weight and pay up without ever questioning where it came from. The unbreakable man follows one crystal clear internal rule: if I didn't ask for it, I don't owe for it. He receives genuine kindness with real gratitude, but he never lets unclarified gifts turn into future leverage or emotional blackmail. He notices when generosity suddenly appears right before a request. He notices the warmth that shows up attached to invisible strings. And he feels zero guilt about declining a debt he never consciously agreed to take on. This one shift alone has saved more men from toxic relationships and bad business deals than almost anything else. Layer 4 might be the most powerful of all. He has an extremely high tolerance for other people's discomfort. This is exactly where even otherwise strong men break every single time someone becomes visibly unhappy. Silence, tears, withdrawal, anger, disappointment, and the man feels an almost physical pull to fix it immediately, to apologize, to renegotiate, to do whatever it takes to remove that emotional pressure from the room. Manipulators don't need threats or ultimatums. They just weaponize their own emotions and wait, knowing most men cannot sit with discomfort. The unbreakable man has trained himself to sit calmly with what psychologists call emotional induction. He can feel deep empathy without letting someone else's feelings become his responsibility to fix. He understands at a core level, other people's emotional states are valuable information. They are not commands that he must obey. I remember watching a version of this play out in a relationship. The woman would go cold and completely silent every time she didn't get her way. Previous versions of the man would chase, over-explain, and eventually cave. This version simply sat there calmly, looked at her, and said, "I can see you're upset. When you're ready to talk like adults, I'm here." Then he continued with his evening without another word. 20 minutes later, she came back completely different, calm, respectful, and actually ready to communicate. That calm is not coldness, it's mastery. These 4 layers, radical emotional clarity, anchor identity, debt awareness, and discomfort tolerance, are not personality traits you're either born with or without. They are skills, they are structures, they are built deliberately over time. And once they're locked into place inside you, certain psychological attacks become physically impossible to land. Now look at your life right now. The relationship that still feels heavy in your chest, the conversations that leave you second-guessing yourself for days, the people who seem to control the emotional temperature of every room you walk into. You can now see the exact entry points they've been using. And the moment you truly see them, they start closing forever. That's the psychology of men who genuinely cannot be manipulated. Save this video. Come back to it whenever you need the reminder. Watch it again in 30 days and you'll be shocked how much has already changed. And drop in the comments right now. Which of the 4 layers hit you the hardest? Be honest, because the men who comment are the men who have already begun the real work. I'll see you in the next one.